Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back after the lunch break. We continue now with the agenda. The next topic that we have is about notifications and supervision activities. Again, here you have the link to the reference to the Slido domain that you can use and the QR code to raise your question. Maybe we can go to the next slide to introduce the topic on notification. Thank you. So what we will cover with this demo is about the notification on trial and recruitment periods, the so-called circumstantial event notifications, for which we will see more details just in the next slide, and supervision activities. Consider, please, that supervision activities really includes several activities that the member states can carry out in CTIS. For the purpose of the demo, we will cover corrective measures only, but these are not the only supervision activities available. We also have the possibility to provide inspection reports for GCP inspections and ad hoc assessment. In the interest of time, we will cover only corrective measure, but maybe a quick glance also at the other functionality. Next one, please. Thank you. So talking about notifications, of course, this is an activity for the sponsor to carry out. What the sponsor can do in the secure domain is to notify the member states concerned of the start of the trial, the start of the recruitment, a temporary hold if this occurs, end of recruitment, end of trial, and so on. So this will be in the first column that you can see, and are events occurring during the trial life cycle. On the right hand side, you can see the circumstantial events notification. This may or may not occur during the conduct of the trial, and with this term we really refer to unexpected events, serious breaches, urgent safety measures, and the submission of third countries' inspectorate inspection reports. These inspection reports are different, of course, from the inspection reports provided by the European inspectors in the dedicated inspection module. The obligation here is more for the sponsor to provide inspection reports in case the trial is inspected by third countries' authority. In the next slide, we can see the corrective measures, so the supervision measures that can be taken as defined in Article 77 of the regulation. Each member state concerned, here we don't have the RMS in the leads, the corrective measure is a national measure taken by the member states. They can suspend the clinical trial authorization, they can revoke the clinical trial authorization and request the sponsor to provide a modification. This last corrective measure, of course, does not have an impact on the trial status, while the other two corrective measures, of course, will change the trial status. So again, these measures are taken by each member state individually and can change the trial status, as said. I think with this, we are ready for the demo, and I'll give the floor to Melis and Olga. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, so hello everyone. Hope you had a nice lunch. So we will continue with the demo. So let me just open the system again. So we are going to start this demonstration of the notifications and supervision part with the sponsor workspace. So we will have a look at the different notifications that can be submitted. We'll cover both the trial notifications and the circumstantial event notifications. So let's log in the sponsor workspace. So in order to see the notifications, we need to have a trial that I have prepared here. Okay, so let's look for the trial. Okay, the trial is authorized. We have two member states that have been authorized, Denmark and Spain, in the initial application, and we have an additional MSc going on for Belgium. This in draft actually, so let me just cancel it just for the sake of clarity. It's the one that we created before. Okay, so we now have 2 member states, Denmark and Spain. I have cancelled the additional MSc application that we had going on. So now from the trial summary, as we said that we were going to go through the different tabs, so now we are going to cover a couple of new tabs here in this section. So we will go to the notifications tab, always from the sponsor workspace, where we have, let's say, 2 different areas of the screen. The trial and recruitment periods notifications that include the start of trial, the end of trial, also the restart, and the temporary hold. We also have the recruitment notifications, start recruitment and restart recruitment. We have a table here where we will show how these notifications are displayed for each of the member states. Then we have the end of trial in EEA dates that will be populated here, the anticipated date of summary of results, the submission of results, and the end of trial, the global end of trial date that will be populated here. Then we have the area for the circumstantial event notifications, which will include the unexpected event, serious breach, urgent safety measure, and third country inspectorate inspection, as Laura was describing just a minute ago. We will see how these notifications are created also. So that's for the screen. So let's start by creating some notifications, for example, for one of the MSCs, Spain. Here in this table, you will see all the member states, and we can either select them individually and create a notification for each of them, or we can maybe select more than one. We can select them all. Imagine that we had like 8, 10 member states here. We could select 2, 3 of them or all of them. So in this case, I will do it only for Spain, the current status is authorized. So I'm going to do a start of trial. So I click on start of trial for Spain. So the only thing that I need to inform here is the start of trial date. So in this case, I'm going to select today. I can upload a document, supporting document if needed. Just upload some test document and add the title here. Okay, thank you. So the document is also for publication by default. We attach it, and now we have the option to save the notification as in draft. I'm going to first save it. So the draft is saved successfully. You see that the status has not changed at all. The trial is still authorized for Spain, and there's no start date. So in order for us to see the draft notifications, we would need to click on the name of the country, and there we have the history of all the trial period notifications that we may have submitted. So in this case, we have this draft notification here, and we can just view it, edit it, or cancel it. So if I click on edit, I will have the same information that I populated. My document is still here, and I will just submit it. I'll be asked for confirmation, and I will submit. So I get the message saying that the start of trial notification has been successfully submitted for Spain, and this will be the ID of the notification. So if I click on OK, and I will go back to the notifications, I will see that Spain has the start date populated here, and it's the 20th of January 2022. So the state is still authorized, but there is a start date. So this is, I know it's a bit strange because we are always going to have the same dates here because we're doing everything on the same date. But imagine that we want to hold, to submit a temporary hold here. So we will click here. By the way, I think we forgot to mention that, but you will have this this little help tooltips here when you put your mouse on the buttons and the options, so that you can see more or less what the option is about. So in this case, you have a description here. So if we click on temporary hold, we will be prompted with a form where we say that, okay, it's Spain. I'm going to populate the temporary hold notification for Spain. I need to provide a date. You see that the structure here is similar to what we had in the applications, where we have the asterisk for the required fields. So we can select the date here. This is the temporary hold date. We can inform, if we want, this is not required, the planned restart of the trial date, but we can leave it empty if we wanted. This is not required. And we are asked here if the trial has been halted for reasons of change of subject safety and or a change in the benefit risk balance. It's mandatory to answer this question. If we say no, then the form remains as it is. But if we click on yes, we would need to provide the reasons. So we just write reasons. Okay. And we need to select a reason for the temporary hold. We can click here and we will be having a list of suggested values here. So we can say that it's safety related, for example. We can select more than one. We have here a field to explain the temporary hold, the follow-up measures that the sponsor is providing, a checkbox to inform whether the treatment has been stopped or not as a result of this hold, and the number of subjects still receiving treatment. We can also upload a document, the form. I'm doing this one more in detail, but you will see that the rest of notifications are more or less the same. The way of yes, I was missing a T. Yeah, thank you. The way of populating the notifications is basically the same. The forms are very similar. We can add the document there, also for publication by default. And the same thing here, we can save the draft or submit it directly. So we will submit it. Yes, I'm missing the follow-up measures. So you see here, we don't have this check option that we had in the initial application, but in case you click on submit and you are missing some information, the system will let you know and will ask you to populate the missing information. So I will click on submit. I will have the confirmation. And now, as a result, you will see that the status of the trial in Spain has changed. It was authorized and now it is halted. And now we have the temporary hold date here displayed in the same table. We have this little warning sign here, which indicates that there is safety and or benefit risk change involved. And that's the question where we answered yes when we populated the notification form. So that would imply that a warning message is provided here. So just so you see, now the status has changed for halted. We can see it here in the trial and recruitment periods. The overall trial status has not changed. It's still authorized. But if we go back to the summary tab, we will see that for Spain, the status has changed. Here we see the individual member state trial status. We see that Denmark is still authorized, but Spain is halted. And now the dates of these trial period notifications that we have just submitted are informed here. So we know that the start of trial was submitted on the 20th of January, And then there was an end of trial notification submitted on the 20th. Of course, it was not a, let's say, a final end of trial, but it was a temporary hold. So how can we see the details? We can just put our mouses over this little clock. I don't know if you can really see because it's a bit tiny, but it's a clock icon. You can just hover this clock and you will get there the details. So you will see the different statuses that the trial has gone through. So it was under evaluation when we submitted the initial application and the member state concerned had to assess. Then it went to authorized after they issued the decision, and now it's halted after this temporary hold that we have submitted. So just for you to see the different changes. And if we go back to the notifications, we will see it here. So let's do, for example, in case we want to restart it, we can click on restart. You can select the trial restart date, but we're getting an error message. I think it's because we're doing everything on the same date. So the system is kind of getting crazy because that's not like the normal process to follow in this case. So yeah, the dates are not working properly here for if we do everything on the same date. So yeah, normally this will be done in different dates. So let's continue with Denmark, for example. Let's do a whole flow here where we will do the start of trial. Also on the 20th. Actually, I will use a different date just to make sure that we don't have a problem with that. Okay. So we start the trial here. We have the date, the 19th of January. And now I'm going to submit the start of recruitment notification. We're not going to hold it. We're going to finish the flow. So for the start of recruitment, this button will be enabled after we do the start. So I just click on the start of recruitment. I will select the date today. I will submit it. So you see that the process is very similar. All the notifications will have a form where you can select the date, upload the document if necessary, then you will submit. You can save as draft, and you will have a pop-up message with a confirmation here. Okay, so here we see that in the second part of the table, the recruitment part, we will see the start of recruitment, populated here. We have the start of trial and the start of recruitment. So if we want to continue with the flow, we can end the recruitment. See if we can do it with the same date. Okay, yes. Okay. So we see that the end of recruitment has been also populated here. Now I'm going to do, in case the recruitment is ended and I want to restart it, I can do it from here, but I will just do the end of trial to finish the flow, let's say. So I'm going to end the trial with today's date. We can say here whether this is an early termination or not. In case we click this checkbox, we will see all this section where we are also asked whether this has been done with a subject safety reason or benefit risk balance change, and we need to also give the reasons for that. I'm going to uncheck it because we already saw that for the hold, and I'm going to submit the end of trial. Okay, we get the confirmation. Okay, and now we have the end of trial date populated here on the table. So for Denmark, we have the whole thing. We did all the notifications, the trial period notifications, and for Spain, we're stuck here in the temporary hold because we have decided to hold the trial for the moment because of a safety issue. So if we now go into Denmark, we click on the country name, we will see that the status is ended for Denmark because we have submitted the end of trial. And we will see here the list of notifications that have been submitted. We have the start of trial, start of recruitment, and end of trial. They all have the same date, but you get here all the history. If we now go to the statuses, we will see that in Spain the status is halted, in Denmark the status is ended. So the overall trial status in this case will be halted because we have, let's say, one member state standing here. So if we go to the MSc trial status, we will see how these notifications have affected the different trial status. We have here all the information populated, and we can also remember to go to the clock icon to see the different updates. So now also from here, even though it's not exactly in the agenda, we can quickly show that after we have done this, we are now able to submit the trial results. There's another tab here in the trial summary where we have the summary of results that we can just upload from here. In this case, we are only able to upload the intermediate summary of results because the trial has not yet ended in all the member states, because I think it was Spain was halted. So in this case, we can select the intermediate data analysis date, upload our document. Okay, and we attach it also for publication by default. We can save it as draft or we can submit it. Okay, we already have the ID. Okay, and now we have here the summary of results entry. Status is submitted, and we see that the version type is intermediate. So after we do the end of trial in all the member states concerned, we will be able to submit the final results. And we will also be able to submit the layperson summary of results. So I'm going to just do something here. I'm going to remove the hold here so that we can actually finish the whole flow. No, I cannot remove it. No, I cannot remove it. Okay, so yeah, probably can use another trial to do the end of trial just to show the final summary of results, how it is submitted. So yes, so for this one, we will leave it like this. We will leave it with the halted status. We will have one member state that is halted and one that is ended. So that's for the trial period notifications and also for the trial results. Okay, we have covered two tabs here. So if we go back to the notification, just to finish with this trial, we have here the circumstantial event notifications. We have the unexpected event, the serious breach, and the urgent safety measure. But I'm going to change to another trial, and yeah, I think it's better to use. Okay, yeah.
Yes, we were saying maybe we can take some questions while Olga and Melis prepare for the second part that is more about the serious breaches, unexpected events, urgent safety measure, and so on. So time for question, and I will address those to our panelists. I think there were a couple of questions, not so much in relation to the notification, but because they were highly rated, let's say. I think it's good if we clarify this now. And maybe the first one would be for Marianne Lunzer. is still about the RFI and the 12 days. And I think the question is it correct to assume that during the 12 days RFI there is no real opportunity to contact the agency to seek clarification or even discuss some points? If not now, could this change? I think this was one of the, yes, the top, is at the top of the list. Marianne, please, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. It is a bit a yes, but I mean, the main idea of the CTIS is to have everything documented in the system. I'm sure that at the beginning, most of the member states will react to questions. You know that there are the contact points for the member states published. This could be a way to get in touch with the member states. I know for Austria we have already also individual email addresses out there in the web. So I think at the beginning, at least for us, I can say we will understand the difficulty when people get started with a new system, and we'll try to help as much as possible. So at least for us, I can say yes. And then again, the but, the goal, the ultimate goal later in time should be to have everything inside the system and not have a parallel communication via email or whatever communication aside.
Thank you very much, Mariano. Really helpful. And we can see in the list there are many questions on planned downtime, what will happen if the system is down. We will take these questions during the Q&A session at 4:30 when we will have our IT colleagues joining us. And also there were a couple of questions on the availability of the service desk. So just to mention that these are noted, but maybe better placed at the session at 4:30. Rudiger, I think there was a question on what's the difference between the start of trial notification and start of recruitment.
The difference is in the definition of the regulation itself. So the start of trial is defined in the Article 2, which is the first act of recruitment of a potential subject of a specific clinical trial. So it's basically the recruitment is open, and the start of recruitment is what is defined in the regulation article on the Article 36, which is the first subject, first visit date that needs to be notified.
Thank you very much, Rudiger. And still staying with you for another question about cover letters. You have already replied this morning about the cover letters, but this one is more specifically if it's possible to upload two cover letters, part 1 and part 2, if part 2 is required in national language in case of an initial part 1 and part 2 application. Thank you.
The cover letter section is one section that is common to any application type. So when there is a local requirement of a language translation, which is stipulated in the Q&A of the European Commission, it says basically that translation in the language translation, but it's not to be understood as being a completely entirely different document that has different context and contents. So there is one cover letter that is provided for any application scenario, application type, and there could be a combination of part 1 and part 2. And where a member state takes the legal actions permitted under Article 26 of a language translation, then an additional translation can be provided in another language, albeit the contents need to be the same.
Thank you very much, Rudiger, really clear. And maybe a couple of questions for Anna. There was a general question if there was a mistake on the start of trial date. You have seen is a very simple functionality. You just select the date from the calendar and you submit. If there was a mistake done, do I have the option to correct it? This would be the first question. And then the other one, you have also seen that there is this common functionality to upload documents, but it doesn't mean that necessarily will need to be used. It's just implemented in the system. So Anna, if you can comment on the update and the upload functionality for the start of trial. Thank you.
Well, I think in general for notification, obviously when we are working in a draft, you can always modify that draft. But even if you submit it in the notification, you have the option to provide an update of that notification, and perhaps Olga can show what are the buttons in those cases. But there is a possibility to do an update of the notification. So just to point out that Laura, I could not follow you on the second question.
Yes, the second question is which type of supporting documentation should be uploaded for the start of trial? Maybe for this we can just explain that it is an option that is available, but there is no prescripted type of document that needs to be provided. It's just a functionality that is optional.
Yeah, and I think this is something apply, let's say, across the system. Sometimes you have this option to add documents. Even I think Rudiger, probably with the cover letter, as we explained, you may want to have an annex to that cover letter, so it does not prevent to add the cover letter plus an annex to that one as a separate document. So I think, as Laura has indicated, that is something that normally is optional, where you can provide some supporting documentation that may help a member state to do a better assessment of the application.
Thank you, Anna. And I think this also clarifies another question that is really related. It seems that we do not need a cover letter for notification, and the answer indeed is yes, there is no need for a specific cover letter, and all the documents, especially for start of trial, start of recruitment, they're very simple functionality. They're just available in case you wish to upload a document, but it's not mandatory. I think maybe
Laura, I would like the opportunity also, as we mentioned before, the possibility to update the notification. Please be aware that you will have also the possibility to withdraw in case you did a mistake and you did something wrong. So once you submitted information, as we say, to the European database, then you can update that information, but also you have the possibility to withdraw the notification as well.
Thank you very much, Anna. Okay, I think we can continue now maybe with our other notification, and we do then a selection of the other questions on notification. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you. So yes, we have looked for another trial where we can actually submit the notifications, because the other one was ended and halted, so no notifications were eligible here. So I'm going to show you how to submit. Let's do an unexpected event, but again, similar to the trial period notification, as you could see that the form, the pop-up was very similar. The options were more or less the same in all of them, and the behavior is the same. So only for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to show how to submit an unexpected event. So we would need to click on new to create a new one, and we can add here the internal identifier coming from the sponsor, the date of becoming aware of the unexpected event. So let's say the 18th of January. We have here a checkbox: was the date of becoming aware of the unexpected event the same as the date of the unexpected event? We can not check it and say that this happened on the 15th of January, for example. Countries where the unexpected event occurred, we can select any country here. Let's say, for example, no, it's not working, so I'm just going to select one from here. I'm going to say Estonia, for example. The medicinal product associated, this will be the list of products on the trial. So we can select if this was related to all of them, only one or two of them. So we can select as many as we want, as long as we are in the clinical trial, of course. The active substance, in case it's relevant, the device associated, in case it's relevant as well. So only the product is required, but we can add more information. The clinical procedure associated to the event. Here we have field to add other information. Here the description of the event, which is mandatory. We can type there. And also the description of the measures taken. There I think M, okay. And we can also add some supporting documentation if required. We can add a document here that by default will be for publication and will be seen here. So here we can save a draft of the notification or submit it directly, similarly to what we did with the trial period. So first I'm going to save a draft, just for you to see how this would work. Okay, so the draft has been saved successfully. So now what we have is under the unexpected events section, we will see this first entry with the unexpected event that we have just created, with a business key that has been generated, the ID, the member state concerned, the internal sponsor ID, and here we will have the last modification and submission dates, if applicable. In this case, we don't have them because it's still in status draft. And from here, we can select to view the notification in read-only mode, where we cannot change anything at all. We can just close it. Or we can choose to edit it. If we edit it, we will get the form again with the editable fields so that we can complete any information that we want to have. For example, we can add one extra document here. Let's add the second document. Okay, it's now uploaded. And now I'm going to select to submit it. We get a confirmation message. We click on submit. And we get a confirmation message. The unexpected event change has been successfully submitted. So now we see that the status has changed to submitted. It's not draft anymore. And that we have the last modified and the submission date populated. The last modified would imply that once it has been submitted, as I think Anna was suggesting a while ago, the notifications can be either updated or even withdrawn. So now I can just select to update it, and I will be able to change the information there. So in this case, we're working on the same day, but if imagine that I select to update it in 5 days time. So here I would see, let me discard the changes. I would see that the last modified date would be 25th of January, even though the submission date will remain, of course, as it is with the 20th of January. So I'm going to now show also the other option, which is withdraw. So once the notification has been submitted, we can click on the withdraw option. We always have to add withdrawal justification. We can also attach a document, a supporting document, and we can confirm the withdrawal. We will get a confirmation message asking if we are sure. We will confirm. And now you see that the status has changed from submitted to withdrawn. Now, as you can see, there's no possibility to edit anymore, to update it anymore. We can only view it. So we will open the notification in read-only mode. We can see the documents, we can download them if necessary, but we cannot change anything at all. We can just close it. Okay, so that would be what we can do here for the, I'm going to submit another one just for you to see the series bridge, for example. So we will click on new, and as you see, the form is very similar to the one we had before. So we have the internal identifier, the date. Let's say that in this case, the date that we became aware was the same date of the series bridge. So the date is automatically set here. The affected countries would be Denmark, for example. the details of the site where this occurred. Here we will have the sites coming from the trial, type of organization, let's say the laboratory, for example. The breach category would be a breach in the regulation or the clinical trial protocol. The areas impacted, subject safety. Here we can add the description, similarly to what we had in the unexpected event. The actions taken and planned. And we need to answer here the question, has the occurrence of the serious breach impacted subject safety and or the benefit risk balance? If we click on no, then nothing else is displayed, but if we click on yes, we would need to have the reasons. Okay. Again, we can select to upload some documents here. Attach them. And again, we have the option to save the notification as draft or to submit it directly. I'm going to submit it. Okay, was successfully submitted and we get the ID. So now we will see that we have this unexpected event that we withdraw. And we have the serious breach that is in status submitted. You see here the little warning message because we marked that it was related to the safety, to the subject safety and a change or in the benefit risk balance. And we see the summary. You see it's very, very similar. Of course, the content will be different, but the structure in terms of behavior is very similar. We also have the option to view, to update, or to withdraw the serious breach. Okay, and same for the other notifications. So now I'm going to quickly move back to the trial period, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the countries in this case, and I'm going to directly do the start of trial for all of them. I'm going to say that it was started yesterday to have a different date. Okay, and I will also select them both and do the end of trial directly without having any start of recruitment, but because I want to show how to submit the final results. So now I'm going to click on end of trial. The end of the trial would be today. That way we have the different dates. Here, after I am selecting to end the trial, and since this will be like the global end of trial, because I'm ending the trial in both member states, I can provide the anticipated date of summary of results, in case I already know it. I can select any date in the future here. And we can say whether all the results, only partial or no results will be submitted. So let's say that all the results will be submitted by the 5th of February. Justification that the results are to be later than 12 months, in case that's that the date that we have selected or that the moment where we submit the results is later than 12 months, we can provide the justification here and also write some text here. Again, we can upload a document if we need it. We attach it and we can submit the end of trial. Okay, we have here the notification submission for both member states. Okay, so now the trial status has changed to ended in both member states. We will see the end of trial date here. So now you see that the data in the global end of trial section has been populated, because we now have the end of trial date that was submitted today, and we also have the anticipated date of summary of results populated. So now we can move to the trial results section, and from here, if we select the summary of results, we can submit now, we can choose whether to submit the final or the intermediate version. Before, remember that we had not ended the trial in all the member states, and that is why we were only able to submit the intermediate one. But now that the trial is ended in both member states concerned, we can choose whether it's final or intermediate. So I'm going to go with a final. I'm going to add a document, which would be the actual summary of results. I will attach it and submit it. Okay, so now we see that it has been submitted, submission date and version type. Then, since we have ended the trial in all the member states, we can also submit the layperson summary of results. You see, it's exactly the same form that we have for the summary of results. We can add the document. We need to add the document actually. Okay, we attach it and we submit it. Okay, so we have now submitted our results. And I think we have finished with the time that we had allocated, but I just wanted to quickly show, if I may, also how to populate the clinical study reports section. For that, we would need to have a specific role, the CSR submitter role. So I'm going to log out and use another user. I'm going to take the trial number.
Thank you, Olga, for
Yes.
also for this addition. Maybe in the meantime we can clarify while you do the setup with the user also all you need. That is important to clarify the difference in terms of obligation for the submission of results. So all the intermediate data analysis, the summary of results, also layperson summary are provided in the system by the sponsor of the trial, while what Olga now is kindly showing is in the tab of the clinical study reports. We could see that there were some questions on the submission of results, so probably this is an important point also to clarify. The submission of the clinical study report is an obligation for the marketing authorization applicant or holder, which of course can be the same company as the sponsor or different, but for this there is a dedicated role that is the CSR submitter that is located by the marketing authorization admin. So are we? Yes, you have
Yes.
already done all the login.
Yeah, no,
Perfect. So we can conclude with the last step for CSR.
It was just to show very, very quickly. I don't want to steal time from the questions and answers time. So as Laura was saying, we will have a dedicated role for the CSR. We will have an additional tab here in the system for the clinical study reports, and the behavior is very similar. We will have the option to add a new one. We need to search the clinical trial. Can you do Ctrl-V? Thank you. We can search it in the system. We will get the clinical trial number from there. We can confirm. And then we can add the MAA procedure outcome, whether it has been granted, the procedure has been completed, or it has been withdrawn. The date of the procedure outcome, the procedure type, the procedure number, and the document. We can attach it and we submit it. So the clinical study report has been submitted for this trial. So let's go back to our trial with our user from before. Thank you. We look for the trial in the clinical trial basic search. We have our ended trial here. We access the summary, go to the trial results tab, and should be showing, maybe I used another trial. I think it was this one. Oh, it should be showing here, but maybe I used another trial. I don't remember anymore. Yeah, well, Okay. it should be shown here, but I think that we just mixed two trials here, and we submitted for another one. But well, that's basically how this will be done. And that's it from the sponsor side. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Olga, for the addition of the CSR. Some questions that were raised in the chat for our panelists. Maybe Anna, I can start with this one for you. Is more in general, not so much in relation with notification, but could also be addressed for notification. Is more about the role between sponsor and CRO. What task can the CRO perform on behalf of the sponsor, and how they are assigned in the system? Anna, please.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Just to clarify for this one, I think in order to be able to perform activities in the system, the user needs to have a role or a combination of role. And this is the same regardless if the user works for a sponsor organization or if the user is working for a CRO, meaning that, for example, if a sponsor it's delegating to a CRO the conduct of a particular clinical trial, then the approach would be that the sponsor admin assign the CT admin role to a user within that contract research organization for that specific trial. And then as this user in the CRO will have the CT admin role, they then can identify other users within that CRO that will be responsible to perform activities in that trial, and therefore start assigning roles to those users in order to be able to perform those activities. So, for example, if the CRO is only going to be responsible for part 2, then the sponsor organization will assign to CRO users only part 2 roles. So again, at the end, it's depending what is reflected in the contractual agreement, in which parts of the process the CRO is going to be involved, and the sponsor organization needs to ensure that the CRO is assigned with the necessary roles to perform those activities in the system. So it's just simply as that. So there is no differentiation because of a sponsor or a CRO. It's more a question to have the right roles to perform the business activities that are required in the system.
Thank you, Anna. No, this is really clear. It's all about the roles and the profile that a user has. For the notification, of course, will be a notification preparer and submitter. But as Anna explained, of course, it is applicable to all the roles, also for the compilation of the CTA. Rudiger, maybe a question for you regarding the temporary holds. How to notify a temporary hold for a part of the recruitment group and not for the whole trial? Rudiger, please.
Yes, the regulation article does not foresee partial or temporary holds other than what is described in the definition of the article. The implementation technical in the CTIS is in fact that if you put a temporary hold onto any member states concerned, it immediately ends the recruitment in that member state concerned by default in its entirety. So partial aspects, including maybe also in other situations that we could imagine, for instance, for certain selected trial sites within a country, are not foreseen within the CTIS to be delivered under this approach, because the status will change in its entirety for that specific member state concerned.
Thank you very much. And if we stay with you also, Rudiger, for another question on temporary hold, maybe it would be nice if we put the system back so we can also show how it's implemented. Is there a possibility to do the temporary hold submission to multiple countries in a single submission, or do we need to do this one by one for each country? Thank you, Rudiger.
Yes, and we can show this maybe perhaps if you can just click on the demo. We do see the.
Sorry, we're putting back the trial details. Just
okay,
to show that.
Right. No, I thought that it may have been a possibility to put on the trial. Yes, you can select
for another one.
Okay, you can select multiple countries. So the status for the notification, and depending obviously that each country could be in a different current trial and notification status, there is an option at the beginning of on the first line and the first column of the countries to select one or multiple countries, and then these will be grouped, and the system will then allow what is the notification type that will be permitted for those types of or for those countries that are currently selected to be grouped in a notification. If I can just on the notifications page, we can, or are we?
Yes, we're trying to find the right
Yeah.
trial because the previous one was, of course, ended.
Exactly.
But
I mean, they were ended, so that is why we cannot do it. So we're trying to look for an authorized one.
But it doesn't matter if we don't, even if we don't have one on the spot, no worries. I think Rudiger already explained very clearly that yes, in principle, you can select one country or multiple country and then complete the form and just send in one go, let's say. If we don't have the trial and we're trying to find the one that is still ongoing, it doesn't matter. Maybe Anna, we take another question for you before we move then to the next part that is about the evaluation and the supervision. Could you select a different date for the notification? For example, if the start of the trial happened on the 18th of January, but you are making the notification today, the 20th of January. Also, there was a question on the fact that the selection was done on the very same date. So how the selection from the calendar basically works.
Yeah. I think for the example of the start of the trial, you can choose for sure a date that happened earlier than today's date. What you cannot do is to select a date that happened after today's date. So that is visible, and perhaps this can be shown as well by Olga or Melis now. So selecting the start trial, and you can see that you can select.
Basically, you will be able to select a date that falls between the authorization date, so as Anna was explaining, when your trial is authorized, and you cannot select a date in the future. So maybe if you have seen the date that was selected today was maybe linked to the fact that the whole application was authorized on the day. Should we? No, I don't know if we have a trial that we can show.
We are now showing for the temporary hold for the previous question. Sorry, because we needed to find one trial that was only authorized with no other trial notification. So that would be the case if we want to submit a temporary hold in 2 countries at the same time. We will have that for Denmark and Spain here.
Thank you. That's perfect. So this is really going back to the previous question. Is very clear what Olga and Melis are showing. With one form, you send a temporary hold notification to both Denmark and Spain. So this is how it's implemented. Regarding the start of trial, you can choose a date from the calendar that, of course, falls between the authorization date of the application. You cannot go before that date because the CTI was not yet authorized, and you cannot select dates in the future, of course. I think we covered quite a lot, and for the notification we have more or less, I think, half an hour for the supervision. Before then we move to the next topic. So maybe we could cover the corrective measures in the authority domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So now for the corrective measure, I will switch to authority workspace. So we are in the sponsor workspace. I will just log out from. And now I'm in the member state. So I will use the Denmark user we've been using in the morning session. I will search for an authorized trial. This is also the trial we've used in the morning. Yes, I have the trial here. So similar to what we've seen in the sponsor workspace, I have the notifications tab here also. And now for the supervision activities, we will start with the corrective measures. So next to the notification and trial results tab, I have the corrective measure tab here. And I have the new button to be able to submit the corrective measure form. To be able to submit the corrective measures, I also need a correct permissions. So my user has already those roles and permissions assigned. So I will just click new. For the corrective measure, the pop-up will be open. And now the status is draft because we didn't submit yet. So for the type of the corrective measure, we can submit whether suspend, revoke type of corrective measure, require modification, and suspend and require modification. So in this case, I will select suspend and require modification. Then the reason of the corrective measure can be serious breach, result of inspection, result of safety assessment. These are the values I can select. So I will just select result of inspection. Then here I need to either provide a justification or a justification document. So I will just write some justification. For my corrective measure, I will say immediate action is not needed. I have an option also here to upload a document, investigator opinion. Then we have this functionality here, consultation with MSc, so I can send this corrective measure to other MSCs for their opinion. And also I am able to submit a sponsor opinion. So here I can write my question to sponsor. I can also upload a document related to my question. I think it's just I need to refresh.
In the meantime, maybe I can take while you refresh the system, Melis, just to take advantage of this time. Very easy and I think important question to clarify from slide we just posted. Will results need to be structured data as in the public register? So briefly, Olga has shown us how the current implementation for summary of results is implemented at the beginning, at the time of the launch of the system, and for the first release is just a simple document upload in PDF. Of course, you can follow the tabular format as we have in UDRACT with a similar content, let's say, but we will not have structured data, at least at the beginning. So what you have seen is a document being uploaded, and more for the content of the document, probably further clarification will be provided, but we will not have structured data as such at the time of the launch on 31st of January. So just to clarify this, because was raised and there were several questions on the results, just on the spot. I don't know if we can proceed. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Melis.
So I will just start over to create the corrective measure. As I said before, we have the types here: suspend, revoke, and suspend and require modification. I will select one of them. The reason we have been selected results of inspection, and here the justification. For this corrective measure, I will say immediate action has not been needed, so this is no. Then, as I said before, we have this functionality where we can consult to other member states, and we have the sponsor opinion request. So one more time for the request, I will create question to sponsor. The form also says that in order to submit this request for opinion, we need to save the form first. So I will just save it. Now we can see that our request has number with our trial number here. Now I can either delete this draft or cancel it and start from over, or I can submit this request for opinion. So I will just submit, asking for my confirmation. Now our request has been sent to sponsor with the due date. So now I will ask my colleague Olga to respond to opinion.
Okay, so sponsor here again, going to reply to respond to the RFI. So I'm going to jump to the sponsor workspace. I'll go to notices and alerts. I will have received a notice saying that the sponsor opinion on corrective measure is required. Oh, yeah, it's true. Yeah, no, the corrective measure will not be displayed here because only the submitted ones I need to access through the RFI. Sorry, this was my bad. So it's here, it's showing here the source type corrective measure. This is the one that has been just submitted, so I will just access through here. And here I will have the content of the corrective measure that I can see for the moment. So I will have here the response. Again, as usual, we have the option to add the document. Okay, that's it. In this case, we have the message that the document will not be publicly accessible. Okay, so the response has been provided, a document has been provided, and I can either save or submit my opinion. So I'm going to submit the response. Opinion submitted successfully. So back to the authority.
Thank you. So I will log out from the sponsor and jump to member state again. So from the notice alert tab of the member state, now I can see the sponsor opinion submitted. I have the alert here, says that the opinion for the corrective measure has been submitted. By clicking it, the form will be opened directly here. So the request, the RFI of the corrective measure is also here. Now the status is changed to responded. Now it is green. I can see the submission date, the due date, and the response date here. Response of the sponsor is also displayed here on the response field. And we can see the sponsor document. So also here I am able to assess the comment, as we have also all over the application, all over the system. So with Denmark, I can write my comment. Thank you to my colleague. Here also we have the functionality where the other member states of the application can share their comment. So exactly the same things we did in the application. I can write the consultation of the reason. Consultation. And I can submit this request for consultation. Confirm. Okay. I will just switch to the Spain, the other member state we have. Also, Spain can see the alerts here. Opinion has been submitted by the sponsor, and also the assessor MSC submitted request for consultation. I can see that Denmark has submitted a consultation. So with Spain, I can also support. And I will submit my comment. I can see the request here with the sponsor document, response opinion document, sponsor respond. Also here again, I can see what actually Denmark made a comment about the request, and Spain can do the same. I will share my comment. Now with Spain, I am not able to submit it because corrective measure created by Denmark. So I will go back to Denmark. Just a bit refresh. I can view the corrective measure, or I can do my changes. Now I am able to see the Spain comments by Spain. Also for the request. Now we can submit our corrective measure. Now I have the alert, corrective measure has been made. So the corrective measure with the number has been made to suspend and require modification to the clinical trial by Denmark. This was the supervision activity that we present to you now. So I will just quickly go over the inspections and annual safety report ad hoc assessment tab. Sorry. So for the ad hoc assessment, now I have the correct permissions to be able to create a new assessment. There are some pre-populated ad hoc assessments, so I will just open one of them. Here for the ad hoc assessment, we need to link our ad hoc assessment to the clinical trial, and then we can populate the assessment details with the title. We can link our assessment ad hoc assessment to some notifications. It can be either unexpected event, urgent safety measure. We can select the affected countries. Also the same functionality as we've seen in the corrective measure. We have the RFI here. Member states can send the RFI to the sponsor for their ad hoc assessment. And then we have the discussion functionality. Then the member states can make their comments. And last supervision activities we are going to see now, it's the inspections. For the inspections also, the user needs to have inspector submitter role to be able to submit a new inspection. Here I will just open one, which is in the completed status. This one works, yeah. So we have this inspection record which is submitted, and it is in completed status. That means our inspection has already been carried out. As we can see here, the last date of inspection is in the past, so that means the inspection already taking place. Now for the past entries, the entries which has the last date of inspection in the past, then the system asks for an inspection report here. So for this inspection, we have already linked our inspection report. This was created by Italy, and I'm logging with Denmark, so that's why I cannot see a report. But let me just quickly check if there is one created by Denmark. This one. Yes, so the same inspection with the completed status, different inspection but the same status. This one is also incompleted. Now we can see that the inspection report is linked to our related site and the related trials. That means this report will be publicly available. With this, we have also finished with inspections. So I'm giving floor back to Laura. Thank you.
Perfect, Melis. No, thank you very much. And now that we are on the inspection record, maybe it would be good to clarify one important point, colleagues. So we have two types of inspection report that will be uploaded in CTIS. You have seen the one provided by the sponsors and the one provided by the authorities. This is what Melis was showing. This is the module to be populated by the European inspectors. Please consider that the exchange of inspection report for the inspectees to comment will still occur outside of CTIS. There are no changes in that regard. There is no exchange of information between sponsor and authorities in the inspection module part. This is just for the GCP inspectors to upload the final, let's say, inspection report, but this module is not used, of course, as a tool, as an exchange of information between inspectees and the authorities. Maybe another important point to clarify on the ad hoc assessment that colleagues were showing, everything that is populated in the ad hoc assessment by the member states is not subject to publication rules. This is really a tool for the supervision, for the authorities to be in contact with the sponsors if they need to raise any requests for clarification for serious breaches, for safety issues, but whatever is populated in the ad hoc assessment is not subject to the publication rules because it's part of the supervision task, let's say. So having clarified this, maybe, and I think we can also then do a very short 5 minutes break before we move towards the end of the topics for today, before we move to public, portal and ASR. Maybe there are a couple of questions that our colleague Rudiger can help us to address. The first question, Rudiger, because we have seen the corrective measures and the fact that there is a possibility for the member states to request a sponsor opinion and to consult with the member states. Can you confirm that you can add a document when asking sponsor for opinion on corrective measure, and if you can comment on this? Thank you, Rudiger.
Yes, thank you. And as was shown on the screen share that was shared by Melis and Olga, we can also see that both the member states can provide a question-related supporting document, and for the opinion on the sponsors, they are able to provide a supporting document. And in the document's metadata, it was clearly visible, at least in this on the screen that was shown for that one specific document, is that these documents are not publicly made available. So they are not published, and they lack, for instance, that specific metadata that is usually shown for documents that are made publicly available in the brackets for publication, just to confirm that this is even also information exchanged between the member states concerned and the sponsor, and all information, including the supporting documents submitted in both ways, are not made public.
Thank you very much, Rudiger. And there was another question on the lay summary of results. Will this lay summary of results need to be in all the European languages or only in English and those of the member states where the trial was carried out?
Here I would make reference to the EuroLex Volume 10, where there has been a guidance document that says summary of clinical trial results for laypersons, and within that document there is, under the Section 9, language requirements where it is expected to be provided in local language in those languages that are applicable to the member states concerned where the trial took place.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Couple of replies. Yes, is only for GCP inspection reports that we are talking about in relation to the module, and then maybe to emphasize, because there was a question again on the results, if they will not have to be provided via CTIS. So really, just to clarify that results will have to be provided through CTIS. It's just that at the beginning we will not have structured data, and this just a document upload, so to avoid any misunderstanding and confirm that, of course, then there will be other releases and improvement of the system with the time, but for the time being, for the results, it's just a document upload. Maybe we can do a very short break just to give a rest also to our speakers. We have two topics left for the day. One is the public portal, great importance, of course, to transparency, publication of data, and then we will have ASR. and then we will conclude the session. But for now, maybe we can break until 3:15. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, after this very short break. So we have the last two topics, as we were saying, we have the public portal and the submission of the annual safety reports. So just a few words on the public domain. Of course, as you know, the transparency is really one of the pillars of the new regulation, of the regulation 536/2014, and in order to achieve that, we have built and developed this public website. So part of the database will be available in the public domain, and the requirements are set in the Article 81.4 of the regulation. In this screenshot is just to give you a flavor, but then we will see better in the demo. You can see the filters, the functionalities available to the public users to search for clinical trial information. There will be a basic search when the user can search for all the terms or any of the terms used, or none of the terms used, and then an advanced search. Of course, the more criteria are used for the search, the narrow is the list of results that are obtained. You can search by therapeutic area, by age group, the member states concerned for the trial, the product details. Even if there are serious breaches or unexpected events, the list is quite long. Once that you have identified the trial of concern, you will then see in the next slide, I think we have a screenshot of the visibility of the results, of the clinical trial results. So the landing page is the summary page, where you have high-level information on the trial, the medical condition, who is the sponsor, the trial phase, the therapeutic area. If the trial has been transitioned, maybe just to briefly mention transition, because we haven't, in the interest of time, we couldn't cover all the topics, but you know that CTIS will also accommodate trials that will be transitioned from the regime of the directive to the regime of the regulation, as the speakers this morning, Christophe and colleagues, have introduced. So this will also be, once the trials are transitioned to the regulation, will be available here. And then there are the notification details and basically the complete dossier. So this is just to give you a flavor, but now we will have a detailed demo given by Melis and Olga, and also will be nice to see the difference in terms of visibility for clinical trials which do not have any deferral applied, so the information is available in the public domain, and a clinical trial where a deferral has been set and granted by the member states concerned, and where the members of the public will not have access to the information that has been deferred. So without any further ado, I'll give the floor to the colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So yes, we are going to now do a short overview of the public portal. To basically, we will be showing what Laura has just explained, but in a more extensive way. So I'm going to log out of the member state workspace. So now we are going to see a third portal. Until now, we have been working with the sponsor workspace and the authority workspace. These are two private workspaces, the two CTIS private workspaces, where the access needs to be done by logging in. You need user credentials to log in, and they work with this combination of users and roles that we were explaining this morning. So now we are going to use the third portal that comprises the CTIS package, let's say, and this is the public portal. This is a completely different URL, a completely different portal. As you can see, you don't need to log in to access the information. There is no user or roles required. Anyone can access this portal, and we are first presented with this search clinical trials functionality, where we have this is a very similar to the clinical trial search that we would be doing in one of the private workspaces that we have seen. We also have a basic search, which in this case is a bit more wide, complex than the other one, because we have 3 fields, and in the private workspace we have 1. And we can also have an advanced search with, in this case, much more fields than what we had. So for the advanced criteria, as Laura was shortly introducing with the presentation, we would have any field that can be informed in a clinical trial can be searched for here in the public portal. Of course, the public portal will contain the whole set of clinical trials created, so the results contained in the public portal is a much wider list. So we need to refine our search even more narrowly than what we would do in a private workspace. So we can have a search by trial status, and the trial status that we can use are also a bit more refined than what we have in the private workspace. We can search by trials that have been authorized but not yet started, trials ongoing that have been started but not yet recruiting. So while in the private workspaces we can search by the overall trial status, here we can search by more refined filters with the trial period notifications, such as start of trial, end of trial, start of recruitment. We can have ongoing and recruitment, ongoing with the recruitment ended. We can also search for ended, revoked, not authorized, halted, lapsed, withdrawn trials, similarly to what we would do in the private workspaces. Of course, we also have the trial number search, exactly the same as we have in the private workspace, the trial title, the condition, the sponsor, the endpoint. So any field that you can populate in the clinical trial can be used here to search. We can also search by product role, the orphan designation number, the dates, the end date or the start date. And we can also search, for example, trials that contain some results already, that we have submitted the results, that contain clinical study reports, that are low intervention trial, that contain a serious breach, an unexpected event, any of the notifications that we have been showing in the previous section. The circumstantial notifications will also be included here in the search. Also that have inspection reports assigned. As Laura was mentioning as well, also trials that are considered transition trial. Remember that we saw this morning when we saw quickly how to create a clinical trial in the system. We saw that we could check this option to mark the trial as transitioned. So now we can also see here in the public portal this option, and we can search by this checkbox and have a list of all the trials that have been transitioned. And basically to search here, what we can do is take 1 or 2 fields, as many fields as we want. We can either use only one search. We will get 12 results in this case for ongoing, not yet recruiting trials. But for example, we can combine and we can take authorized, not started trials that have, for example, an unexpected event submitted and a serious breach. We can search. There are no results. We have none under these conditions. Probably something like, okay, I'm going to search for pediatric trials with the age group 0 to 17 that are not authorized. So that's how, also no results. So that's how we can combine the different filters here in the public portal search in order for us to get a more refined query, more refined list of results, and be able to to find what we're looking for. Of course, if we have a trial number, we can just type it here. We're going to look for a trial that we have created specifically for the demo. Okay, if I search, the clinical trial is retrieved. So I will see the trial information, the CT number and the CT title. See that this is one of those that had some changes as part of an RFI. We can see the basic information here about the start date, the end date, also the conditions and the countries. So if we access the trial, we will get directly to the trial summary information. As you can see, the information is the same that was displayed in the private workspace, but the view is a bit different. We will see the conditions, the sponsor, trial phase, basically the same information that we will see in a trial summary in the private workspaces. We can also see here the table that we saw, if you remember, for the notifications, the trial period and recruitment notifications, where we have the two countries, Denmark and Spain, the two member states concerned, with the current status, decision date, start date, in case there is an end of trial notification. We will also see the date here. We have also the warning message here when, in this case, a temporary hold is related to safety and or benefit risk. We also see the recruitment start and end dates. And we can also have the history of events in each of the countries, in this case for Spain and Denmark. So you see that basically the information is structured a bit differently, but we can see the basic operations that we have done in the private workspaces here. We also have the full trial information page, where we will see all the sections. Remember the accordions that we used to have in the application. So we will see that the information is just presented a bit differently, but we have the information here. Let me just remind you that this trial that we are taking now didn't have any deferrals at all. The sponsor didn't set any deferrals, nor did the authority, of course. So we have here the full information of the trial has been published. Of course, the full information of the trial that is eligible for publication, because there is, as we have also discussed, there is this restricted information that will never be published, such as, for example, the quality documentation. So basically, we will see the same information, the MEDRA, the eligibility criteria, endpoints, population groups, the protocol information, sponsors, the products. We see the accordions by role, and we see for each of the products here, product details, active substance information, the device associated with the medicinal product, the IB. For example, there's the section IMPD quality, exactly the same as in the application, but you will see a message, confidential information not for publication according to the regulation. So you will see a message here. The sections are exactly replicated, but in case there is some restricted information that is not eligible for publication, you will see here a message informing you. The safety and efficacy, the IMPD safety and efficacy is, however, published, and you will see here this will be a document that we can actually click in case we want to access some of the documents. The documents will be presented like this. It's a different presentation from what we saw in the private workspace, but it's basically as simple as just clicking on the document, and it will be automatically downloaded to your computer. So what else? We also have this document summary, table summary. We don't have this fields where we can filter as we have in the document table in the application, but still we can have all the list of documents here, and we can actually click on those, and they will be opened and stored in our PC. Then we have for the part 2 also 2 sections, one per member state concerned. And here we'll see the planned number of subjects, the trial sites, and also the list of documents with the different sections, so that we can just click there and open the documents. Some documents take longer than others because they are bigger, but just so you see how they are opened in a separate tab. So that's for the full trial information. Then we would have the tab events that will contain all the notifications. So basically the circumstantial event notification that we were seeing, unexpected event, serious breach, an urgent safety measure, the third country inspectorates will be shown here. Also the temporary hold, because as we saw, the trial period and recruitment notifications are shown here. Then we have another tab for the trial results that will be displayed here. Also the corrective measures that have been associated with the trial. In this case, we don't have any for this one. And also inspection records in case they are any, which they are not for this trial in particular. But they will be displayed here. We have the option to download the CT information. So similarly to what we have in the private workspace, we would download and we will get a file with all the information there. And something else that I would like to mention here is that the publication of the information will be done accordingly to the publication rules set in the regulation, but also according to the deferrals that either the sponsor or the authority users may have set for this trial in particular. Apart from that, this trial, as we said, does not have any deferrals. Now we are going to see one that does have all the possible deferrals that we can have, so that you see the difference of the information that is displayed here and the one that is not. But apart from that, we see here this option, the request removal of public information. And just to quickly mention, we're not going to demo this for the sake of time, but just to mention that the user has this option to request the removal of public information, and this will be addressed directly to the EMA. There will be also an EMA user that can log into the system, and they will have this amend functionality option available, where they can actually override the existing publication rules. They can either push forward the publication of some information at the user's request, or they can directly remove something from the public view. So in this case, if we are a user that is seeing that some information has been published and it should not, they can click on this link to open a request for EMA to remove those data from the public view. So that's basically it for the trial public view. So I'm just now going to quickly show how a trial with deferrals would look like. So for this one, you see that all the information is published here. You know, if maybe we can do in a separate, in a different tab, the search for the other trial so that we can compare. This is another trial that we have created, and we have set some deferrals there in the subject information sheet, in the IMPD safety and efficacy, responses to RFI, and also to the main characteristics, if I'm not wrong. Yes, so we will see here how the difference in the information that is published is quite significant. For example, the conditions, trial phase, therapeutic area, even the names of the member states are not published at all, if you see, as opposed to the trial with no deferrals at all and the trial with deferrals. You will see that the difference is quite significant. Also, if we navigate to the full trial information, we will have this message here. We will have this blue banner that will let us know that there are some data that have been deferred. Data for this clinical trial has been modified by the administrator. And if we click here on the detail, we can see that there was a deferral set in the main characteristics, and we can also see when this is going to be published. So the main characteristics, we have a deferral, and the data will be published since the publication of the final summary of results. Subject information sheet data 2 years and 7 months after the end of trial, and the IMPD safety and efficacy section and investigator brochure has been deferred to 2 years and 3 months after the end of trial. So here we can see the deferral rules that are applying in this case, the modifications that have been made. And if we have a look at the trial, you will already see that, for example, the member state's name is not published at all. And also in the trial identifiers, in the trial details, you would see that the title is not there either. And the information that used to be here is, or that was supposed to be here, is not here. So low intervention, trial phase, trial category, none of this information is displayed because of the deferrals that have been set. The population of trial subjects, none of this information is displayed. So that's it basically for the public portal. This is what we wanted to cover. So I don't know, Laura, if we have some questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Olga and Melis, again for the demo. We will now move to the Q&A session. Some of the questions that have been raised, I think, are similar. Maybe we can group them together. Anna, there is one for you. I will read actually 2 of them because they're similar. Is this CTIS publication replacing other publication requirements like UDRACT and the WHO? And another similar one is the EU CTIS Public portal replacing the current EU CTR, the Clinical Trial Register? And if so, with the data currently held in the register, will this be migrated? So if we can clarify the difference between the public portal of CTIS and the public register of UDRA-CT, the EU Clinical Trial Register. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Lara. Hopefully I clarify that. Just first of all, to say that what has been presented now to you relates to the publication of those clinical trials that has been submitted to CTIS under the umbrella of the clinical trial regulation. For those trials that will continue ongoing, coming from the clinical trial directive that will continue ongoing under that regimen during the transition period, then will follow the rules that currently exist, and therefore the information will be made publicly available in the EU-CTR, obviously unless this trial are transitioned to CTIS, and then the publication rules that we have under the clinical trial regulation will apply and then will be presented here. It is the intention also to have an interface between CTIS with the WHO International Clinical Trial Registry, meaning that we will follow the same approach as for UCTR, that it will be also a primary register of that platform. So I think that's one of the questions that has been raised. And just to clarify, there is no intention for data that is already kept in UDRA-CT and relates to trial that has been ended and already reported. There is no intention to do a migration. So some clinical trial data will remain in UDRA-CT, and only new trials submitted under the CT regulation or that has been transitioned to the new system will follow and will be made publicly available through the public module in CTIS.
Thank you very much, and I think this is really clear and helps to clarify the difference between the two public register. Rudiger, maybe a question for you on the publication aspect. There was a reference to scientific advice. So can we submit 2 different versions of the document, scientific advice for public domain and another one not for publication with the complete scientific advice content for review. Thank you, Rudiger.
Generally, in principle, it is always possible to provide a document for publication, which is the legal requirements following the transparency rules of the regulation, and then providing where needed a document that is not for publication with intent, for instance, to protect personal protected data. Now, the intent of the regulation is not that all the documents for publication would simply state, please refer to the document that is not for publication, and then the overall contents is basically held in the European database only in the non-published versions. So while 2 documents are required, in principle, the contents of the document is required to be in the public domain, in the public document, albeit some redaction anonymization requirements applied. And we've heard earlier today by Laura that EMA is currently under developing guidance documents, but it is not permissive to solely make reference to the document and keep it not for publication and keep the document for publication entirely empty with no contextual contents.
Perhaps, Laura, can I complement
Sure,
as well?
please. Thank you.
No, just to clarify that in the system, we have also created a placeholder in these cases that there is a scientific advice related to quality, because we want to prevent those to be made publicly available. So in those situations where there is a scientific advice concerning quality, this can be placed in that placeholder, and this will prevent the publication of this information. Rudiger, I don't know, you want to add something more to this?
Indeed, thanks for adding this, Anna. And just to complement on that specific aspect that Anna has just introduced with that specific case for the scientific advice, is that then the questions and the answers, which means the considerations and the sponsor responses as part of the application RFIs to that scientific advice quality, will also be fully protected from publication, as they fall under the quality section. And we have seen earlier today on the RFI that consideration questions and sponsor responses related to quality are fully protected from publication. And that document would then follow the same transparency principles. Thanks, Anna, also for just to adding here this.
And thank you, Rudiger. If we can continue with another question on the publication aspect. For the documents publicly displayed, this is just the latest approved version that is visible in the public domain, or can users see also previous versions?
We need to differentiate 2 aspects here. A version that was superseded as part of an application evaluation and is not the latest version at the time of decision will not be made public. So as part of RFI responses. So only the latest version at the time of a decision of an application or in a non-substantial modification, the one that was submitted will be made public. Now, when it comes to different versionings between the different applications in the public portal, it is obviously possible to select a specific application type. And if this was an application that included a prior and previous version of a specific document, then we can certainly see the previous versions as well, as long as they've made it in principle to the decision stage and were not superseded as part of an application evaluation.
Thank you very much. I think it's really clear. And the last one for you, Rudiger, before then we give other questions to the other panelists, just to clarify if the protocol synopsis for part 1 will be the same as the layperson synopsis.
The protocol synopsis is just mentioned in the regulation Annex 1 under the protocol section, where it just say that the protocol should be accompanied by a summary, by a synopsis. And then in the question and answers in UDOLEX, the Commission, together with the expert group, have provided an expectation of what this document is, and this is basically in the regulation Annex 1 D24, and the stipulation on the requirements, including language understandable to layperson, has then been further specified in that question and answer document in Eurolex 10 under question 5.8.
Thank you very much. Maybe would be good to clarify, because there are some questions, and this also nicely introduce our last topic for the day, that is about the safety reporting. There were some questions in relation to SUSARs reporting to vigilance. There was a reference to CTIS and how SUSARs and ASRs will be reported for trials under the directive and the regulation. So maybe just to clarify that the sponsor still will have, the obligation still remains for the reporting of the SUSARs via vigilance. So CTIS, of course, will not accommodate the reporting of SUSARs. What we have is just the module for the reporting of annual safety reports. Marianne, there was really this question saying SUSARs and ASRs, how will be reported for trials under the directive and the regulation? Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I think this is an important topic, and we have clarified this in the Commission question and answer document. I can briefly summarize that all obligations in relation to authorities, member states, can be dealt with using the new systems, both for annual safety reports and for SUSAR reporting, while the obligations in relation to other parties like ethics committees remain as is, and they have to be fulfilled. So all directive obligations with regard to other parties remain as is. This is clearly clarified. Now, to be a bit more precise on the new modalities, the annual safety reports, you will see clearly in the next presentation, can be submitted to CTIS, and we offer the additional alleviation, so to say, for sponsors, that they can submit in a way also the directive annual safety report to via CTIS, while it is not technically not possible to select those trials within CTIS. You can indicate the trials that are also covered by this submission in a cover letter. Unfortunately, there is not a dedicated section in the annual safety report submission form where you can include the cover letter, so you will have to include it in the slot named other. So you can see this later on when the system is demonstrated. And with regard to SUSARs, it is already a well-established system to submit SUSARs to the Vigilance database. And as Laura introduced the topic, this system is not about to change. And perhaps you are aware of the implementing regulation, at least Christoph already mentioned it in his introductory words. Member states now are obliged to collaborate in safety data assessment, and using those centralized systems allows member states to collaborate in a good way, and certainly will improve patient safety by doing so. Thank you.
Very clear feedback. Thank you so much, Marianne. We now have the last 10 minutes break before the last topic, that is about safety, in fact, the submission of the annual safety reports. So I propose we break now for 10 minutes, and we start again at 4 o'clock as per agenda. Thank you. Okay, we are ready to start again. colleagues on the line, we have the last topic for today before the panel discussion, the detailed Q&A, is about the submission of the annual safety reports. I think we have just one slide to present the objectives of the demo, what Melis and Olga will show us. Also, for the submission of the annual safety reports, there is the activity performed by the sponsor in the secure domain for the submission of the documents, and then you can see nicely here the various steps and what the user will have to populate. So the sponsor information first, the clinical trial details, the document being uploaded, and then additional supporting documentation and progress with the submission. Once the submission occurs in CTIS, then of course there is an evaluation that is done by the member states concerned, which will also be demonstrated. So Olga or Melis, I don't know who takes it from here. Thank you.
We will split again, sponsor versus authority. Okay, so let's go with the last one, promised. So we will be back, we will be leaving our beloved public portal, and we will be back to the sponsor private workspace, because we are going to see how to submit an annual safety report. And then we will do something similar to what we did with the initial application, where I did the sponsor part, the submission part, and Melis was doing the assessment from the authority. So we will do something similar for ASR. It's actually a very simple functionality. It's very similar to the submission and assessment of a clinical trial, but in a much more simplified way. So let's log in first with the sponsor user. Again, we are using this super user with all the roles, but there's also a dedicated role for annual safety report. There is one specific role in the sponsor workspace and two dedicated roles also for the authority. In this case, we are using super user, so our almighty users can see and do everything here. So we have the annual safety reporting tab here in the sponsor workspace. And again, we see this presentation in the screen, similar to the others that we have been seeing all day, with search at the very top. We have the basic search and the advanced search that we can unfold to refine our search. And then we have the search results. So we will see here the list of ASRs that has been created in the system, in this case, since we are the sponsors in our sponsor organization. So you see that it's a very similar view to the one we had with the clinical trials, but it's much simpler because we only have the ASR number, the IMPs, the submission date, the sponsor, and the SAMs. We will now see how this will work. So first thing, let's create an ASR. So we click on New ASR, and we are presented with the form. The ASR form in this case is much simpler than the clinical trial one. It has 4 sections only. It also has the buttons here to clear, check, cancel, and submit. So we will go step by step. We have these 4 steps. We can also jump from one to the other in this banner. So we can also expand it all. So let's go one by one. Step 1, sponsor information. So here we need to select. We don't need to search in OMS as we do with the clinical trials, because the system will automatically show here the information of the sponsor for which this user has the ASR submitter role assigned. So in this case, this is our test company, fictive company that we are using for this demo. So the details will be automatically populated. There's nothing else to do here. We would need to check this checkbox to indicate whether the sponsor organization that we are using, either as the lead sponsor or the co-sponsor, are commercial. Okay, so we can select this here. It's just a checkbox. And we have the contact details for the ASR submission. So here we can say just the full name. And if we click on this checkbox, we can choose that the contact or legal representative information is automatically populated from the sponsor. So in this case, we will have the information coming from the organization information in the system. What we need to inform manually is the email address and the phone number. So with that, we have finished part 1. We jump to the next one. And here we need to select the clinical trial or clinical trials, because it can be more than one, to which this ASR is related. So we will search the clinical trial. We are prompted with this screen where we can choose a different number of fields. We can also combine them to look for the clinical trial that we are looking for here. In this case, we have one already prepared, so we can directly search for it with the clinical trial number. It's always the simplest way to look for a clinical trial, but of course, if you have other information or if you want to obtain a full list instead of one specific clinical trial, you can combine the filters that are offered to you in the advanced search. So we will search in the system. We will get one city. In case, of course, this was a wider search, we will have more than one, and we can select one or more. We will add it to the ASR, and we are presented with the products added to this trial. In this case, only the test and comparator products are displayed. If you remember, for this trial, we had some placebos as well and some auxiliary products, but they are not retrieved in the annual safety report, only the test and comparator. So we will select them. You can select if we want to have one or more than one product in the trial affected by the ASR. We can select more than one trial and also select one or more products inside that trial. We click on next and we finish the step 2, which is only about the clinical trial details. Step 3, we will need to indicate the ASR reporting period details. First question, is this the sponsor first ASR or for any of the IMP selected? We can say yes or no. If yes, we would need to select the IMPs for which this is the first ASR. So let's do this one. The data log point would be the date up until which we have been gathering the information for that ASR. Of course, we will have here, let's just to give you an example, we have the ASR reporting period. And let's say that the ASR reporting period is from from 2021. So I'm going to take from the 1st of January 2021 up until the 31st of December 2021, so one whole natural year. But maybe my facilities were closed for Christmas period, and the last day that I collected data was the 22nd of December, let's say. So the data log point in this case would be the 22nd of December. So I'm covering this whole period, but the last date that I was gathering collecting the data for the report was the 22nd of December. So that will enable us to select a different date inside this period. Then we need to respond whether the RSI were updated during the reporting period. If there was a substantial modification on RSI submitted and approved during the reporting period. And then we have this last option to indicate whether during the reporting period indicated above, the ASR includes a novel combination, new combination, and we have some other options here. Gen safety measure, other, none. We can just select none, and that will be it. We can actually select more than one. Sorry, we can only select one. Here, no. Yes, no. Okay, sorry about that. We can only select one if we select other. If we select other values, we can select more than one, actually. But if I choose to select other, that would be the only one that I can select, because then I will have this text field to describe this other item with a text. Sorry about the confusion here. Good. So with that, we will finish step 3. That will be section 3 of the ASR. We can jump to the next one, which is basically to add the documents. We have one mandatory document, which is obviously the ASR document. So unlike the clinical trial application, this form is only to populate with the information about the ASR, but the actual information about the ASR will be contained in this document that will be uploaded directly into the system. And we have one here, PDF document, ASR document. And in this case, we don't have the for publication or not for publication, because ASR is not published, will not be publicly accessible. So that is why we will get the disclaimer message here saying that the document will not be publicly accessible. And as you see, we don't have this option to add more documents that will be not for publication or for publication in this case. We can also upload SMPC if the SMPC includes RSI and it has not been submitted as part of the ASR document, so we can submit it separately. The investigator brochure, if the investigator brochure includes RSI and has not been submitted as part of the ASR document. We can also upload other documents. And last, we would have this declaration on behalf of the sponsor, similar to what we have when we are about to submit a clinical trial application. We would need to confirm that the information provided is complete, that the attached documents contain accurate information, and that the sponsor will declare that the annual safety report is prepared and submitted to the agency in accordance to the Article 43 of the regulation. We also need to acknowledge that the RSI documents are provided where applicable, and that we agree with the previous statement. So once all the information has been completed, we can also check. We will say that ASR is valid, and we can submit it. So it's just as simple as that. That will be the submission. As you can see, it's much quicker than submitting a clinical trial application. And now we will start with the assessment process. So Melis, authority, please.
Thank you, Olga. So back again in the authority. Since we use a clinical trial which involves Denmark, so I will log into system with Denmark credentials. Similar to the application, we can also use the task tabs here to see the task related to our ASR. Since the clinical trial we use is mononational, so we don't have a sum selection process here. Denmark will be automatically selected as sums. So we have the circulate draft ASR task here. I will just assign to myself to upload the ASR AR document. Here also we have an option to generate the template for the ASR document. I will just upload one test document from computer. In this case, this is Word document. We have the title, we have the type, draft ASR assessment report. Again, this will not be publicly accessible. We can see it from the disclaimer here, and I will attach the document. I have an option to upload more documents if it's needed. Now I need to share this document before completing the task. So I will share. Confirm you want to share with all MSc. Yes, I want to share. Documents shared successfully. We can see the green message here. And now I will complete the task. Now from the task tab, also by clicking the ASR number, I will be redirected to ASR page. So from here also we can see the sponsor details, contact for ASR submission, clinical trial details, and annual safety report details. These are all the areas that populated by sponsors, so we are able to review them. ASR document also in the submission documents section, we can download it by using this icon here. So I will just click to assessment. We'll create some considerations similar to what we did in the applications, and I will create one RFI. Now I have the consideration here. I will share it. Shared date is populated here. I will accept it. So the functionality is basically the same, what we have been doing since the morning. Comment here. Now my consideration has been moved to the consolidated considerations tab. I will select again. Now I want to share my consolidated considerations. And now I am able to submit the RFI. So with one consideration that I have created, we can select the reason, either incomplete document or regular RFI. Now we have an option to select due date, and we can also upload a supporting document here related to our RFI. So I will just not upload, and let's submit this. Now our RFI submitted successfully, so I will kindly ask to my colleague to reply to RFI. Olga.
Sponsor here again. So I will just close everything, okay?
Yeah.
We'll just log out. Let me just, well, no, can go from the RFI section. Well, I actually had it open. Well, let's log in again. So logging into the sponsor workspace again. So if I access the RFI section, we will see the RFI from the ASR that has been submitted is pending. Denmark has submitted it. So we can click there. You'll see that the ASR, the ID is basically different because we have the ASR here. So if I click here, I will be redirected to the ASR assessment form. And again, we are not seeing the consideration section that the authority has, similarly to what happened in the CT assessment. We see the data for the RFI. We see the consideration that has been included. I will click on respond, add my response. Okay. I can also upload sponsor documents here in case I need it. RFI response document. I can select the type here in ASR. There are no this fixed document type, so I can select whether this document that I am uploading is just an additional document that I'm adding because it was not there before. The sponsor discussion response supporting document, just a supporting document to my response, whether it is another ASR document, another version of the ASR document, or investigator brochure, protocol, or SMPC that was not originally included, or maybe I just wanted to have an update there. So I can just choose to upload an additional document. I will attach it. I will need to, let's say, sign this declaration again, agree to the above statements, that the information is complete and accurate, and I will just submit it. And that's it from sponsor.
Thank you. So I will log out from sponsor and switch to authority workspace. So again, from the notice alerts tab, we can see that our response to RFI has been submitted by sponsor. Here also the RFI tab, we can see the status now changed to responded. I can see the sponsor response and I'm able to leave my comment. And I submit my comment. Back again in the tasks tab. So now we submit our RFI, sponsor respond to RFI. We assess the RFI response. There's also the task for assess RFI response. We did it from inside of the ASR. Now I can finalize this assessment. There are some questions that I need to reply, like are there any safety issues to be aware of or to follow up? So I can say yes, and then I need to say the safety issues. I need to select one of the options from this drop-down. I can select no. I can leave my comments. Is there any action required to follow up or to take? Either yes or no. Requested action to sponsor, then if I say requested action to sponsor to follow up yes, then I need to select what needs to be requested. So it can be protocol, ASR content or other. Corrective measure required, yes or no. Comment here, text field that I can make my comments. And some questions related to summary and conclusion for sponsor. Are there any new issues? Yes, no, either yes or no. Specific action is required by sponsor, due date for specific action. To be able to complete the task, I need to upload the ASR document, final ASR document. Here also the type final ASR assessment report. Again, this is not publicly accessible. To complete the task, first I need to share. I will confirm that I want to share with all MSc. Documents share, and now I can complete the task. Let's go to the task. To the tab, annual safety reporting tab. Then we can check from the assessment. We already seen that the RFI section here. And then in the assessment document section, we can see the draft ASR which we uploaded in a minute ago, and also the final ASR document here. So with all this, we finished the annual safety reporting demo. So I will give back the floor to Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, Melis, and I think this was the last demo too. So thank you very much to Melis and Olga for the walkthrough in CTIS today. So we have just around 5 minutes left for the Q&A for annual safety reports, because then at 4:30 we should start with the plenary and try to address different type of questions. The question on annual safety reports will be for our expert, Marianne Lunzer. Thank you, Marianne. Maybe I can start with the first one. There are different type of questions. Let's start with, during the transition period, is the E2B-R2 format accepted for case submission? Will the DSUR format have to follow the directive or the regulation?
Thank you, Laura. Just a quick response on this. The formats are not in any way affected by the switch to CTIS. So as long as the R2 format is accepted, it can be used either under the directive or under the CTR. And we are not planning to change the format of the annual safety report. So the DSUR format remains as is.
Thank you. The next question, I think we already briefly mentioned, but because it's really important to clarify, SUSARs in the format of ICSRs will not be submitted to CTIS, correct?
Yes, I don't know how to behave with my head. So the answer is correct. It will not change. It will remain under the roof of the Youth Vigilance Database.
Perfect. We are participating in an investigator-sponsored trial providing an experimental study medication. It is the only ongoing trial with this drug. Who is responsible to submit the DSUR, the trial sponsor, investigator, or our company?
It is a sponsor responsibility. So whoever is creating the annual safety report is fine for us. It needs to be submitted. It needs to be submitted full stop, and the responsibility lies with the sponsor.
Thank you, very clear. And then a question on export. Will it be possible from the module that we have just seen from the demo to export ASR data?
This is a bit unfortunate. You can only download the document itself or the different documents that you're uploading. You are not able to download in a similar way as compared to the initial submission or the trial itself. In the annual safety report, I think you will have to do a screenshot for the structured data to capture those and download the document separately.
Thank you. I think there was a question similar, but just to emphasize again, for ASR during the transition period, if a study continue to follow the directive, will the ASR format be able to follow the directive, or will the regulation have to be followed? I think, Marianne, this you clarified already, that really is not affected by the legal framework.
The format is not affected, and the modality is dictated in a way whether or not you have already your first trial under the directive. As soon as you have your first trial under the clinical trial regulation, as soon as you have your first trial in CTIS, so under the regulation, then you are able to submit your annual safety report via CTIS as well. Mentioning, as I said before the break, mentioning all the other trials in the cover letter, because you are technically not able to indicate those, so you will have to use the cover letter for this.
Thank you very much. Searching for clinical trial number is not practical for ASR. There are too many. Can you explain how to search per compound and include only the trials ongoing?
Perhaps this was not really very visible in the demonstration. You have a search field where you can include your active substance, and this is the expected way to go. Since if you are a commercial sponsor and you are investigating, you have a development program for your product, then the expectation on our side is that you will submit a single annual safety report for this compound. So you will include the active substance into the search field, get a list of all the trials that you have ongoing with your developmental compound, and then you are able to tick those trial by trial and include them into the submission.
Thank you very much, Marianne. I think we have a very last question maybe to raise. There were few that were linked together. Is about the first, now let me read correctly the question. There was a section demonstrated is the first ASR, and the question was, what if this first ASR was submitted in the EU, but we have submitted to the US also previously? Do we say yes or no to that question? And I believe there was another question along the same line, how to use this first ASR question implemented.
I would say better to use the first in Europe because we are interested in a way in both types of submissions. We are interested in the first ever and in the first in Europe. So if you tick the first also in case it's only the first in Europe and you have already something ongoing in the US for a while, I think for us it's better if you tick the first also if it's only the first in EU. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Marianne. You have addressed several questions on the ASR. You are really the expert in the field, and I think it's exactly now 4:30 sharp. We finish now with this, all the Q&A session and the demonstration and the walkthrough of CTIS. We wanted to allocate enough time for more question and answer, also with more colleagues joining the panel. So with this, I will give the floor back to Dr. Fergus Sweeney. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Laura, and I'm really pleased to see the activity and questions during the individual sessions, and we've been collecting questions also from the Slido, which we've tried to regroup and we'll address with the panel as much as we can in the time available. We've tried to pick those that people have been voting more for. First of all, we have the panel on screen. We have some of the people you can see have already been introduced. I believe I should also introduce Peter van Kierbergen. So Peter is head of the clinical trials workstream at EMA and the CTIS program manager. He's an industrial pharmacist with a PhD in pharmaceutical science and a master's in informatics, so a good blend, and worked for 4 years in R&D, clinical data management, project manager, and then joined the Belgian authorities where he worked in R&D for clinical trials. So well placed with experience across the activities. I'm also joined, and next to me in the room is Petri Pakonen, who's head of human medicines information management at the agency, and he joined in 2018 as head of project assurance and management. He had multiple positions in business and IT development in the private sector and at the Finnish Medicines Agency, and Petri is responsible for the IT delivery within the CTIS program, among other responsibilities at EMA. So welcome, Petri. And also, I believe we have online Stephen Lemur. He's service delivery manager for our business intelligence platform and closely involved also with the developments on the safety assessment, including in relation to the annual safety report we've just seen, but also on SUSAR reporting and assessment by the member states. Stephen worked as a clinical data manager in industry before joining the EMA, where he's been involved in the data management and business intelligence. So welcome, Stephen. And I see Christophe Bonarens, who was in our opening panel this morning, has rejoined us. So I'm going to take, I think, about 25 minutes, hopefully, for questions. We've got a list. If there are a few that need to be added, colleagues will call out. And Fia Westerholm, who's our CTIS Program Assurance Manager and Change Management Lead, has been very actively monitoring and regrouping the questions. Fia also joins us on the panel. She's Program Assurance Manager for CTIS and has been leading the whole suite of training, change management, and communication activities, which of course you're all very much aware of. She has a background in veterinary medicine, toxicology, and social sciences, and has many years experience from EMA and national level as well as industry in Finland and at the Finnish agency across research and development, assessment and regulation of medicine. So welcome, Fia. I think Mariana Lunzer, Rudiger Pankau, Ana Rodriguez and Laura, who are on the panel with me also, you've already met. So we can start with the questions. And Christophe, if I may, a first one for yourself. So we have a transition period, and user is asking, how is ongoing defined for studies to be transitioned to the regulation by 31st of January 2025? And particularly, how is this defined for studies with long-term follow-up post last patient, last dose? So there's a question from Irene Gowan. At that point, the study report may have been prepared, but what is the study's reporting status? So what is ongoing defined as, and how do people transition then for those long-term studies to CTIS?
Thank you, Fergus. It's an excellent question. It's not the first time we've heard it, and we're actually covering, I would say, a little bit more questions on transitioning in an upcoming version of the Commission Q&A that will still be published just before go live. Specifically on the question, without wanting to become overly philosophical, ongoing means it has not been ended. And to be more specific on that, ongoing should be read as no end of, there is no clinical trial for which in a given member state there is no end of trial submitted as per the CTD. In other words, if you have a multinational trial which is still not at the end of trial as mentioned in the protocol and authorized by NCA and Ethics Committee, if you have still an ongoing trial for which the end of trial has not been submitted somewhere in the Union, then the trial needs to be submitted if that submission is not done before the 31st of January 2025. So the main thing, the main focus is the end of trial as it's been defined and agreed in the original protocol or subsequent substantial amendments. Thanks, good question.
So thank you very much, Christophe. Next question is a technical one, which I'll address to Petri on file sizes. So this is for uploads of documents. The question reads, it's noted there appears to be some, and then 50 megabyte size limitations on certain or all documents. Is this a current limitation to the system, and will it be updated or increased at a future date? Petri, please.
Yeah, thank you, Fergus. Yeah, at the moment there is a size limitation that applies to all documents, which we are looking to increase to be the 50 megabytes. But going beyond the 50 megabytes, we don't have the exact or concrete plans to go beyond that one at the moment. Obviously, we will be monitoring the situation and then making decisions based on the information available and how the situation evolves post go live.
Okay, thanks very much, Petri. And I think we'll make technical details available in the sponsor manual as well. Thank you. Then it's back to Christophe. And then there are a number of questions about member state national requirements, and I've tried to group these a little bit in terms of issues related to documents and requirements, and then also languages. So first of all, Christophe, under the directive, member states have a variety of common documents, but also a variety of requests for specific national documents, and I see an example here given viral safety reports. What is the expectation for these type of documents under the regulation, and should there be only, in addition, one cover letter, or how do cover letters address country requirements as well? Christophe.
Thanks, Fergus. Again, a quite excellent question, and I'm always very happy to get this specific one, because it gives me the opportunity to look straight into the camera and to tell everybody, colleagues, there are no such thing as national requirements under the CTR. The CTR is an agreed regulation agreed by member states in European Parliament that defines how a clinical trial will be authorized in Europe. And what is specific of the CTR is that in its annexes, it contains the information that sponsors are expected to submit as part of the initial application, substantial modification, and a section on safety submission. So that is already defined in detail. Nevertheless, that same CTR acknowledges that there's something like a harmonious common part, the part one, and a part that of the application that is different and can be different from one member state to the other. Even in that part two, I would say, there is a clear listing of what member states are supposed to check compliance with at the national level. Giving some examples, it's things like the local treatment of biological samples, the local interpretation of the GDPR, and so forth and so on. So those elements still can have some national differences based on national legislation, not on interpretation or guidance, but real national legislation. The rest of the dossier is harmonized. Then Fergus, because you snuck in several questions in one. Viral safety reports, interesting question and interesting point, because viral safety reports are part of the quality IMPD. What the legislation says of this is that it's suggested to the sponsor to use an international format to submit that quality information, Module 3 of the CTD. That Module 3 of the CTD has some specific chapters, and specifically for some biological entities mentions viral safety reports. So it will a little bit depend on the substance you have and on the way you choose to submit that IMPD, whether you need to submit those viral safety reports or not. Interestingly, specifically for the quality of IMPD, there is a guideline from the Biological Working Party focusing on biologicals and from the Quality Working Party focusing on chemicals that gives a little bit more detail on the expectations within a dossier. So that part, I say, would need to be European harmonized based on the existing guidance. And then the cover letter. That I find it an interesting question as well, because there's a theoretical and a practical answer. Let me start with the theoretical one. Theoretical answer, colleagues, is in the regulation, because the regulation says you need to submit a cover letter and there's this, and this element. In practice, however, we are seeing already now, even before the legislation is applicable, that member states are saying, well, and for us, if you submit to us, please add this and this, please add this part of information. I want to be very clear, colleagues. I'm looking straight into the camera, looking straight to member state colleagues. That is not the aim. The aim is not to make a new dossier, to make a separate dossier in the cover letter, to say for us, in this country, we need this and this information, and you can all add it to the cover letter. No, the structure of the cover letter is defined. There are some additions that have been agreed and that could be relevant for the submission of specific dossiers, but in general rules, even the cover letter's content is limited by the CTR. And that text, I cannot stress that enough, was accepted by member states and by European Parliament. So thank you. This was a long speech to say in 2 words, member states' requirements, national requirements, some may exist, but the majority of them will have to be aligned with the CTR rules. Thank you very much.
So thank you. And I have just 2 supplementary questions or issues. One is about languages, and the specific question, will responses to RFIs be accepted in English only, or can member states require the RFI response to be in the national language? And then separately, when will the final list of translation requirements, so I guess who wants the protocol in national language and so on, be available?
Thank you, Fergus. I feel really like being examined today, so thank you. Let me start with the more easy one. When will the list be available? There is already, and there has been for some time, a list of Part 1 requirements for language use published in Annex 3 or 4 of the Commission Q&A. There will be still some updates in the version we will publish by the end of next week, which will make it clear for even more countries what the expectation is. Are there still gaps? Yes, I feel very annoyed on having to admit this. There are still some gaps. Some member states' information is not there. However, colleagues, that is also, in a sense, somewhat logical because the legislation does not apply. And as a commission, we cannot start enforcing or start really sending annoyed messages to member states for legislation that does not apply. That changes on the 31st of January 2022. 4 days later, on the Friday of the same week, we already have the first meeting with the national contact points. And I can be even more transparent, colleagues. The point of language use is on the agenda there as well. It is our aim within Commission, it is my personal aim to have that list, at least for Part 1, as complete as possible. And then the question on the RFI, I find it a difficult one because an RFI has different, can come from different sides. It can come from the Part 2 of the document, the national part. It can be on the informed consent, and it might as well be that it's more easy and more straightforward to ask a question in the national language. That's perfectly allowed. Article 25 of the CTR says member states should consider to accept commonly used language. In this way, we did not need to say English, but it can still be possible that you will have a question from the national parts of the dossier in national language. Is that something that is to be encouraged? Of course not. Let me also be clear on that one. The international language and the language we will use is English, and especially when member states would be added to a mononational trial, it would be quite annoying when all the interactions, the RFIs, the considerations would have been formulated in the national language. So theoretical question and practical question yet again. Theoretical responses, there is no strong legal basis to say, no, it all needs to be in English. In practice, I think we can expect that answers will be given in English. Thanks, colleagues. Interesting question again.
Thank you very much, Christoph, and I think you've earned a rest now. So I'll move to Ana Rodriguez. So let's sponsor delegation to other organizations. I think this will be important in international trials. So there are 2 points to the question. In case of third country, for instance, United States, or it could be Japan or anywhere outside the EU, sponsors, do they need to be registered in CTIS themselves in order to delegate tasks for CRO, or is it possible for the CRO users to submit the application on the sponsor's behalf? That's question number 1. And question 2 is, can the contact point be a different organization from the sponsor? And again, e.g. a person from the CRO. So Anna, can you answer for us, please?
Thank you, Fergus. Perhaps I will start with the last question, and the answer is yes. You can have a contact point that can be different from the sponsor. Regarding the first question, I think I addressed a similar question before. I mean, to perform activities in the system, what you need is to be assigned with roles. So it's up to the third country sponsor if they want fully delegate the conduct of the trials to a CRO. And when I mean fully delegate, I mean also even to give the sponsor admin role to a user from a CRO. That is feasible as well, although personally I would not recommend it, because at the end the sponsor has ultimate responsibility on the conduct of the trial. And therefore my advice is at least there is one user from the sponsor organization that has also at least the sponsor admin role on top of other users from a CRO, so they can have a good oversight of what is happening on that trial. And this is in the context of what we call the organization-centric approach, which require a sponsor administrator. Also, in addition, it's possible to create trials via the city-centric approach, so the CRO can create a trial on behalf of that sponsor, third country sponsor organization via this route. But again, we encourage sponsors preferably to use the organization-centric approach, because it's more secure. It facilitates the sponsor to have a good oversight of the organization that are working in sponsored trials on their behalf. So therefore, the answer to this question is yes, but please follow, if possible, my advice that yes, delegate, but ensure that you have users within the sponsor organization that can have an oversight of what is happening with that trial, because at the end, the sponsor is ultimately responsible on the trial.
Okay, thanks very much, Anna. But I mean, basically what you're saying is the sponsor can choose either to delegate completely to the CRO and they can start the trial, or the sponsor can build its organization with different delegations inside the system, and the CRO can take it from there. So I think that's good. And another one for you, Anna, on the transitions again. I think that this one you may need to slightly interpret, but if a clinical trial has a UDRACT number but was not yet submitted for approval under the directive, do we need to refer to the UDRAC number when we submit to the CTIS clinical trial regulation?
No, because if this UDRAC number has never been used in an application submitted to the NCAs, and then you change your mind and you decide to submit it via CTIS, then you need to generate a different number, the number that is generated through the new system. So that UDRAC number will not be applicable anymore. A different matter is in the case that you are going to transition a trial that is ongoing in CTIS, and then in that case you will be asked to refer to that EU number. But I think in the question as such, you are referring on the case where this number has been never used in a trial submitted to a competent authority. So
thank you, Anna. So yeah, it's only trials that have been authorized under the directive and you want to transition them that you need to use the UDRAC number. So another one for you, Anna, and an important one about investigator site registration in OMS, and the user is saying there's a lot of confusion regarding the listing of sites in OMS. Is this required, and how does it work? Thank you.
Thank you, Fergus. Again, I think this question has been addressed before also by Rudiger, but perhaps I can also remind you. Obviously, it's not mandatory to have, let's say, the size register in OMS when you submit a clinical trial application. You can, if you are always obliged to search in OMS when you prepare your application. And if you don't find that investigational site, then you can add it in the system, and then it will be sent to OMS for their validation. So you will be able to proceed with the submission of the application. What we have recommended to the sponsor, obviously, is that for those trials that are very often used in clinical trial application, then it's better that they are registered in the first place in our organization management system, so they can be retrieved at the time of preparing the clinical trial application in CTIS, and we will ensure a better quality of the data. But as Rudiger previously explained, even if you don't find your site in OMS and you are preparing that application, it will not prevent you to add that organization directly in CTIS and proceed with the submission of the application.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So I'm going to come back to Christoph, because there was a question on signatures, which I think is an important one. And is it allowed to submit not only wet signed documents, but also electronically signed? And the example is given with DocuSign or Adobe Sign. So, Christoph. And will there be different national requirements? Again, maybe some member states want something with a wetting signature and others are happy with...
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Fergus. Actually, colleagues, I'm going to let you all in on a little bit of an informal secret, in that sense that 2 days ago, we sent around an email survey to the member state group we're working with, specifically inquiring on the use of signatures. From a purely CTR stance, I do not read a lot of obligations. I read an obligation for sponsors to flag up and confirm that the trial is complete, that everything submitted is in line with reality, and so forth and so on. I do not read a specific instruction to submit wet signed or signed documents as such. The word signature does not come a lot in the regulation. So what we wanted to do and what we wanted to understand from member states colleagues is the need stemming potentially from national legislation on having on specific documents a written signature. That there might be some instructions specifically on submissions for investigator CVs and material that is part of the part 2. This being said, the question was not on signatures as such, it was about electronic signatures. And there I would say yes, for those signatures that are equivalent to a wet signature, they can be used wherever required. Nevertheless, I also need to very carefully and very strictly warn that signatures are very recognized form of personal data. So this needs to be very carefully managed with the publication rules and the versions of the documents that are for publication and that are not for publication, because we do not want to see that signed versions and signatures of individual persons are coming in the public domain due to the automatic publication rules. So that's a word of caution and actually confirmation that we as a commission are working together with the member states to make clear instructions available for sponsors on signed documents with already a very clear indication from my side that that will be rather limited. Thank you, Fergus. I hope that was clear.
No, thank you very much, and I think that's clear and welcome that the information will be coming and that we're aiming to keep it simple. So I'm sure that will be widely welcomed. I have a question on, I'm just going to have to go quickly now because we're getting very close to the end, but Peter van Keerbergen, Help Desk. Do you plan to establish some help desk, especially during the transition period for the questions arising from real life and that might not be found in the training materials?
Thank you, colleagues. Together with my colleague Petri, we are organizing a service desk in several layers. Two first layers are IT-wise. The last layer is EMA business. The service desk goes live at the same moment the regulation goes live. It will continue the whole year. It will continue later on. We will try to have more wider opening hours. And the purpose of the service desk is to respond to the questions you will have primarily on the use of CTIS.
Thank you very much, Peter. So I think now it's time to start to draw to a close. A number of people had asked about the link to CTIS. Obviously, our team here today have been demonstrating the system to you, and you can see a link on the screen. Clearly, the system is not live yet, and that link will become available when we open the system live at 9 a.m. on the 31st of January, and we will also share that through, well, it'll be on the website, obviously at the landing page of CTIS, but we will share it widely also on social media and other channels so that people will be able to find it as soon as the system is live in production after 9 a.m. on the 31st of January. So with that, I think we should bring to a close. I think I have one or two slides, Marianne, to talk to. But key messages, I showed this at the beginning this morning, but I think it's useful to remind ourselves. CTIS will be the single point of entry for clinical trial information in the European Union and EEA. A harmonized and simplified end-to-end electronic application procedure. So a one-stop shop for the application to competent authorities, to ethics committees, and importantly also for public registration of the trial. So you just make the one submission to CTIS and all of those are addressed. And obviously then all the steps after that through the trial up to the end and results publication thereafter. We have a transition period. We have 1 year now when you can choose to go the directive or the regulation using CTIS. This is the time for sponsors to prepare, learn the system, make sure your staff are in place, that you've updated, changed your SOPs, whatever is needed so that you're ready, because come this time next year, you'll be a few days away from obligatory use of clinical trial regulation and CTIS for all new clinical trials in the EU. And then, as we've heard, and Christoph explained further, 2 years later, 31st of January 2025, if you still have trials ongoing previously authorized under the directive before that date, and it can be as soon as or as late as you choose, that must be transferred to the clinical trial regulation and via CTIS, or it will have to stop. There's no other route for continuing those trials after the 3 years. CTIS will offer transparent and searchable trial information to patients, healthcare professionals, and the public. Really important for patients and doctors, treating physicians looking for trials, especially I think for rare diseases, but also for others. And also making results on all trials available. Every trial, interventional trial in EU, once it's authorized under this legislation, will, or transition to it, will have public information. And hopefully you've seen today, it's an intuitive tool. There are a lot of functionalities there, so it needs practice. Look at the training, work out your processes, make sure you've got the information available, and then move onwards. So really engage with it. It's time to change now, time to move. We've been preparing for quite some time, but now it's here, it's real. So next slide, please. And taking the opportunity that really the regulation offers. It offers, as we said, enormous benefits for clinical research in Europe, but that sits within a much bigger picture. So the European Heads of Medicines Agencies, the EMA and the European Commission have worked together to establish a program called Accelerating Clinical Trials in the EU, ACT EU. This was launched on 13th of January, and you can find information on HMA, EMA, and Commission websites. And this is to really use the clinical trial regulation and other initiatives which are ongoing now to springboard clinical research in Europe and promote the development of high quality, safe and effective medicines, strengthening the environment for clinical trials, integrating clinical research in the European health system, and engaging all stakeholders, bringing everybody to the table by establishing a multi-stakeholder platform. So more information will come, watch this space, but it's exciting times for clinical trials in Europe. So I'd really like to take now the opportunity to thank all of my colleagues here on the panel, in the room and in the background. We've done Eftikia, Marianne Wood, Erofili, Jackie Carrier, and also you can see all the people who are still on the screen and who are with us from EMA, IT and business, from the member states, from the sponsors. You've worked enormously hard with us in developing the system, from the European Commission and from our IT developer as well. And you've heard several of us today. It's been an enormous teamwork. So really, really looking good now and counting down to Monday. We thank you all. Super big thank you to everybody. And I'll hand over now to Marianne Wood, who has some closing information and thoughts for us. Marianne.
Thank you. Before I actually close off, I would like to hand back over to Christoph von Arens from the Commission for final few words. Thank you, Christoph.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, colleagues. Yes, thank you, Fergus. I just wanted to use this opportunity to express thanks to one specific person, because he just thanked about everybody except for himself. So it's up to me to then do that. Fergus, I've known you for a couple of years now. I dare not say for how long. We run part of this marathon together, together with other colleagues as well. And I must say, if I used to think about clinical trials, your face popped into my head. And that will not change even after you retire, well-deservedly in the course of this year. I want to thank you generally and from my heart for your involvement, for your leadership, for your general concern on clinical trials in Europe. And I want to congratulate you once again with this major success of bringing CTIS to a close. Mariana, back to you, but with a very big applause from my side to Dr. Fergus Sweeney. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, colleagues, Christoph and everybody. And I have to say, you refer to my retirement. Being part of this has kept me young. So it's been an enormous pleasure, challenge, but a huge pleasure to be involved with you all and so many people online. It just shows the interest. Thank you. The big teamwork, really. You wouldn't be able to thank me without all of the team having done their job. So really recognize that. Thanks. Marianne.
Thank you. We are now coming to the end of our demonstration today, but I've got 2 housekeeping questions that I would like to answer. So the recording will be edited and we are aiming to make parts of it available through our website, on the agency website. Then, regarding the questions that you have raised, we will review them, and relevant questions might make it into our frequently asked questions part. So now I have to say thank you everybody who's participated, as an attendee, as a participant in the front presenting. Thank you very much for attending. I am now closing this meeting. Thank you very much.